We are not a placement agency for families looking for dogs as much as we are a placement agency of dogs looking for families.
According to the Humane Society of the United States, between 6 and 8 million dogs and cats enter U.S. animal shelters each year. 3 to 4 million of these animals are eventually euthanized. In response to this crisis, a network of volunteers, animal shelters, and rescue organizations strives to save as many of these animals as possible by finding them permanent, loving homes. During the past few years, I had the privilege of following the volunteers from one rescue group as they committed their time and resources to help dogs in need. Rogers Rescues is a canine rescue made up of volunteers spread across New Jersey and southeastern Pennsylvania. The group's namesake, Anne Marie Rogers, founded the group in 2002 as an all-breed rescue, welcoming dogs of any and every breed and mix. Since then, the volunteers from Rogers Rescues have succeeded in finding homes for more than 1,000 dogs.
A lot of people come in and ask us what rescue is, and my way of saying it is we send a lot of animals to rescue because we simply can't adopt out all of them and we don't like to euthanize them. And a lot of people are like, well, why don't you just adopt them here? Well, it's impossible when you have so many. It's just like full. I mean, so we send most of our animals to rescue groups.
With millions of animals in shelters, it doesn't seem like the unavailability of adoptable pets could be much of an issue, but it actually is. Or to put it more precisely, it's a matter of the supply not being where the demand is. For instance, an animal shelter in New Jersey may have to put people seeking companion dogs on a waiting list because they don't have any, while shelters in rural areas of Kentucky and West Virginia have too many dogs and too few people able to give them homes.
When you're dealing with rural shelter populations, and the overcrowding issue, one of the cases to really consider is just pure volume of, there is a population locally who just can't handle, as adopters, the number of dogs coming in.
This is where groups like Rogers Rescues can help by pulling dogs out of shelters where they have little chance of being saved and transporting them to the Northeast.
We will help them by taking the dogs out of the shelters and into foster homes. So we're sort of like an extra kennel, if you will, of the shelter where a dog can go and a dog can be safe, and we'll foster the dog, we'll do some basic training with the dog, things like that, and then hopefully get the dog adopted to a nice family.
Bringing the dogs into the rescue is not always an easy task, because to get one transport from point A to point B on a weekend can sometimes involve 20 different people. For us, it involves renting cargo vans, building crates that have been, stored, and getting dogs from point A to point B with volunteers who give up their Saturday instead of, doing something around the house or watching the game, and they drive. And they drive to a point to pick up, they drive to a point to drop off, they drive to go home, and it's all volunteer. It's one of the most amazing experiences of people putting aside their differences for these animals.
In the fall of 2007, I traveled with a group of Rogers volunteers as they visited some of the rural shelters they work with to provide support and to transport a number of adoptable dogs back to the Northeast. Over the course of 3 days, we journeyed over 1,500 miles, visited 5 shelters, and transported over 20 dogs. Along the way, I got to see firsthand the challenges faced by animal shelters, as well as meet dozens of individuals who have devoted themselves to the animal rescue cause.
Today we are going to the Humane Society of Parkersburg in Parkersburg, West Virginia, and Marianne, one of the girls in our group, with the help of Miss West Virginia, has arranged for a food drive there today. So we'll be there doing the food drive, and folks can come get their picture taken with Miss West Virginia and such. And we're going to give supplies to Parkersburg as well.
I mean, I would say over 2,000 animals were pulled from rescues from this building last year. And that's 2,000 other animals that would be in my freezer and would be in the crematorium and would be, you know, adding to the antidepressants and the sleeping pills that the shelter workers.
Yeah.
And anyway, this is what you say, and cut.
All right, so how are we feeling at the end of the first day?
Oh, jeez. Rather tired, but nice.
We are heading off. It's very early in the morning. We're going to go out to breakfast with the fine people of Paws in Paris, Kentucky. We're going to go over to her shelter and see some dogs.
We have, through the internet, made connections with groups in the Northeast mostly that check our website, talk to our volunteers that coordinate, and pick the animals that they feel would be best suited to their homes up in their area. And once they're picked, we get enough together to make a van load, 20 animals maybe head north 1-2 weekends out of the month, and save many lives from here.
It was a long time before we even knew that there were rescues out there. So once we found reputable rescues, and we usually go through different processes in order to find out, but Rogers has actually proven to be one of the best rescues that we've ever worked with. I'm not saying that because it's you all doing this, but it's like Rogers calls and wants a dog, we're going to do whatever Rogers wants, because we know that just through experience, all the dogs that have gone, we get the updates on them, and we get, you know, and it just means so much when, you know, one of the dogs leaves here. We want to know what happened to them and where they are, and Rogers has always been so kind to make sure that we know what's going on with them. But if it weren't for all the rescue places that we send dogs, I don't know what would happen to them, because Lawrenceburg is too small for all the adoptions that we would need. And, you know, out of every 10, 20 dogs, maybe one would get adopted locally.
Well, it's kind of hard. It's hard to look at the faces and know that a lot of them won't make it out. But Donna does what she can, and we try to help. We're not a huge organization. We help when we can.
Oh, this is very, very nice. This is very, very nice.
We're here to visit the dogs at Mercer, and see how the shelters ran, meet the people. We dropped off a bunch of supplies. We're hopefully taking 2 dogs home at this point.
Today we're heading over to the Bowling Green, Warren County
Humane Society in Bowling Green, Kentucky. This is our last stop, and we are going to spend some time with the girls, take a tour of the shelter, and then we're going to start to load up dogs and trace our steps backwards to the shelters we just visited and pick up dogs along the way, and then end up in Pennsylvania tomorrow, bright and early at about 8 a.m.
This is Ramsey. Ramsey's an Australian cattle dog. And he is going to be my new foster. He was a stray and he's only about 6 months old.
When I first started here 7 years ago, they did not have a rescue program, and they had a euthanasia rate of about 80%. I walked in on one of the euthanasia techs euthanizing a very adoptable purebred dogs, and there were about 40 of them laying on the floor. It hit me hard, and I got on the computer and I started playing around, and I found Michelle May, Kentucky Lab Rescue. I contacted her and she ended up pulling 4 purebred labs. It just, to me, didn't make sense that there wasn't a place for all these dogs. There had to be somewhere that could help them instead of them being euthanized. So I've worked on getting a rescue relationship with probably close to about 100 rescues.
We're doing good. We got the van almost loaded. We're getting the dogs from Bowling Green into their crates in just a minute. We already have 2 dogs from Grayson County who are already packed up and ready to go. So we'll be taking off in about 10 minutes. We have left just the Grayson dogs, right? All the Bowling Green dogs are on.
Well, Rogers Rescue is leaving with 4 dogs from our shelter, and they're going to 3 other shelters to pick up dogs. They took 4 from here, and they've got 3 other stops to go to. And they're going to be back in Pennsylvania at about 8:30 in the morning to meet the rest of the rescue groups to drop off the dogs.
Okay, we are in Clay County, West Virginia, in a town called Big Otter, and we are waiting for a gentleman named Walter from the Clay County Animal Care and Control. He's bringing us 4 dogs that we're going to take back to rescues that are in Pennsylvania.
We got about a half an hour more to go. We're running a little bit early, so we took a break, get some coffee, some pee breaks, and took little Tilly out to pee. And we're just killing a little bit of time.
I'm tired. I'm very tired. I did the night shifts, so I'm ready for a nap.
I'm doing kind of the early morning shift, but I feel good. I had some coffee. I just want to let the dogs out of the crates. I feel bad for them. I know they have to go and they're cramped up in there, and I'm feeling guilty, even though I keep telling them they're on their way to love.
There we go. All the rescues except for 1 or 2 have come and gotten their dogs, and as quickly as everything sort of gets crazy, it dissipates.
Rescue doesn't end with the dogs getting off the transport. After arriving safely, most of these dogs will be cared for in foster homes until they are eventually adopted. Rogers works hard to help each dog find what they call a forever home.
The word rescue can be spun in the same way that going green in the corporate world can be spun. You can change out the light fixtures and you can stop watering the lawns and you're going green. And you can, pull dogs and place them to the first person who comes along and call yourself a rescue. It goes a little bit beyond that. First person to come along doesn't always get the dog. We're really looking for the right fit for the dog based on what the foster home feels is appropriate. And some of our dogs will sit in foster care being loved as members of our families for quite a long time. Others, they're in and out at the minimum holding periods. A lot of it depends on the right fit.
It all starts with an application that somebody fills out for a dog they may be interested in. and we ask some basic information on that application. Some basic information about their home, do they have kids, do they have other pets, etc. The next step in the process is for that person to have an interview. So we say, okay, you have kids, but are they active kids or are they low-key kids? Do the kids have friends over every day or do they have friends over hardly ever? So how busy is your house? So we start to get into a little more detail about their lifestyle, not to judge them, but to find out what would be a really great match for a dog in their house.
The rescue also works to provide assistance with post-adoption support. While groups like Rogers Rescues are making a difference in the lives of hundreds of animals and people, there are still huge challenges to overcome, from changing laws to changing cultural attitudes.
She found her as a stray on Highway 185 and brought her in. She's about 10 to 12 years old. My guess is she's probably got heartworms. We're going to put her in a kennel by herself and feed her some canned food and probably put some weight back on her.
What do you think the chances are for that?
More than likely it'll probably be euthanasia if she's not reclaimed by her owner. And if her owners do come in to reclaim her, we're going to wonder why she's in such bad shape. Probably include animal control in on this one. She's emaciated.
According to most state laws, dogs still qualify as material possessions, and therefore you can throw a dog away like you would change the tires on your car or the shoes on your feet. You deal with rural shelters, you have circumstances where people buy hunting dogs, the dog doesn't do well, the dog doesn't get back into the truck. You have cases where the dogs are breeding vessels, and it's very sad, but once the breeding vessel has expired its value, it ends up in the woods, or it ends up at a shelter.
In addition to their animal rescue efforts, Rogers publicly advocates the practice of spaying and neutering companion animals to help control the pet population.
The huge problem herein, why we have animal shelters in every county and every state in the United States of America, why we have groups like the ASPCA and the Humane Society of the United States, is first and foremost because people don't spay or neuter their animals. Because we keep having continuous litters that we don't have homes for.
They also oppose the purchasing from and the perpetuation of pet stores, puppy mills, and backyard breeders. While time and volunteer efforts are the backbone of any rescue group, it also takes money. In addition to normal operating costs, any dog that Rogers adopts out must be fully vetted and given a clean bill of health. If a dog in their care is sick, they go to heroic efforts to make the dog healthy, which unfortunately comes at a very expensive price. To help offset these costs, Rogers holds fundraisers each year and relies on donations in the form of both money and supplies.
We all try to do what we can. Some people volunteer at a soup kitchen. Some people do dog rescue.
Here's a puppy for you.
Through their ongoing efforts and the generosity of others, Rogers Rescues continues to work towards making their dream of a day when every adoptable companion canine can find a home into a reality.
We operate as a community and not as independent volunteers working under the umbrella of an organization. And so when a dog comes in, it's a big event because it may just be going to one foster home, but the entire rescue is aware of it. The entire rescue knows what's going on. And when things happen, we try to celebrate adoptions. You cry when a dog gets placed, and that joy just has no other outlet. There's nothing harder than driving away from someone's house and having the dog sit in the doorway or in the window and watch you leave. But it's the greatest feeling in the world.